Better stop fidgeting.
Today on Simply Happy Conversations, I have with me Tanya. She is from Vanguard Coaching, and she is an ADHD and executive functioning coach that's helping people to better understand behaviour. Welcome, Tanya.
Hi, Narelle. Thank you.
Oh, it's so nice to have you. It's so nice to catch up and talk in person.
It is. I've heard lots of wonderful things about you, so it's been really good.
Oh, thank you. And you yourself as well, which is why I reached out to you, because of your extensive knowledge on executive functioning. So maybe start though and tell us a bit about things that you like to do in your free time. And I know everyone goes, free time? I don't have free time. What would you like to do if you had free time though?
Well, I do. I now know to make free time for myself. I've had to learn that skill. What do I like to do? I have obviously I have kids. They live away, so when I can, I would like to go visit them. I've got animals, pets. I've got two big Bernese mountain dogs and a Maltese cross poodle, so they keep me busy. I like sort of walking them, spending time with them. I do martial arts when I have some spare time, and I like that's generally planned sort of training as well. I like to read, and I do sit down. I've learned to switch off and be able to watch like a show on Netflix or something like that. And
Yeah.
I've been working very hard on doing that without doing three other things at the same time.
Yes, I struggle with that. Yes, I can only do that on a Friday or a Sunday night.
Yeah,
Definitely not during the week. And so what sort
yeah.
of books do you like to read? Is it non-fiction or is it fiction or a bit of both?
Bit of both. Bit of both. At the moment, I've just started reading autobiography of Ruby Tui. She's a New Zealand rugby player, and I don't follow rugby, not into like football, but I watched her on TV in an interview, it was maybe 1 or 2 years ago, and I was just intrigued by her. She just had this energy, and I wanted to learn more about her, and she's fascinating. So,
Oh,
and the
amazing.
books, yeah, I've just started the book, so yeah, it's
Oh,
really good.
good. I love getting a good book tip. I need another one to put on my Kindle.
Yeah.
So tell us then why did you get into actually ADHD and executive functioning coaching? Because there's so many
Yep.
other different styles of coaching you could have chose from.
Yeah. Well, I was diagnosed with ADHD 7 years ago when I was 42, and at the time I was studying a psychology degree, and I realised that there wasn't a lot of services around for ADHD, particularly for adults. And the psychiatrist who diagnosed me said, "You don't need counselling. You actually just need coaching. You need skills coaching." And I'd never heard of it before, so I had a fantastic coach. She's now actually my mentor. She was the first coach here in Australia, and I realised that my strengths were in helping people there, and decided not to go on and do clinical psychology. So that's sort of how I got into it. I had a gym, so I've been a personal trainer for 14 years. So I was kind of doing both businesses, and then realised that I couldn't keep both going, and my ADHD coaching business was just getting busier and busier.
Yeah.
So
And so because I'm sure, like I know I did some wellness coaching and I really struggled with sitting at a desk and doing that and the coaching, and I missed the physical, which is why I sort of then went into the organization and in person rather than online, because it was wellness coaching really / organization. How do you go then, around that?
Yeah, so I have a really good variety. So
Okay.
I see people face to face, mostly kids. So I've been really fortunate because there's only a limited amount of time after school. A couple of the local schools have given me space to go in there and work with some of the kids. One of the schools they have me go in there once a month as well. And then with the kids, often I will do a bit of physical activity at the very start of the session. So it gives me a little bit of I have a little bit of fun with it as well, which is good.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice. Yes.
And then I have to structure my own training as well, so I don't get caught up in just working and not putting that side of it in.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so nice. And so what led to the ADHD diagnosis, if you're happy to share?
Yeah, happy to share. So I'd been, oh, well, gosh, must be 12, 14 years now. So 7 years before I was diagnosed, I think it was, I was in the US with my family, and was staying with some friends, and one night this friend just said to me, "Do you have ADHD?" And I just laughed and was, if I'd have that, like, I'd bounce off the walls. Well, I don't think I bounce off the walls, but other people might have seen differently. Anyway, she has ADHD and so does her daughter. And she just said there's just so many things, and it's not normal to be in these conversations and doing all the things that you do. It's just not normal. But to me, that was really normal. So, and then I didn't really think about it too much again till I was doing my degree. And a friend of mine said to me one day, we were reading about ADHD, and she just was like, this is just so you. I was like, nah. I actually thought it was more her, but she's also since been diagnosed.
Okay.
Because we both had similar kind of challenges, mostly around the executive functioning stuff. But then at the time I was diagnosed, I was also training for my 4th degree black belt. And I was working, I was studying, I was traveling to Melbourne to learn all of this new stuff, I had kids. Every kind of strategy that I had put in place stopped working. So, obviously with executive functioning, when you have a lot more stress, they kind of almost like they go offline. So the strategies that I had just no longer worked. And then, it was like everything just started falling down around me.
Yeah. So maybe talk a bit about executive functioning, because I'm sure it's like a buzzword that people use all the time, but some people may not understand what it actually means.
Yeah. So it's something that everybody has. There's these processes in the brain that help with working memory, planning, prioritizing, time management, so goal-directed persistence. What else have we got? That self-awareness, so metacognition. There's a variety of them. And then what people don't realize is that with ADHD, pretty much everyone with ADHD has some challenge with executive functioning. So often people will go, yeah, but everybody runs a bit late sometimes. Or, sometimes it's just really hard to get your housework done. But for a lot of people with ADHD, it's just because they haven't got those skills to start a task. So task initiation is another one. It's a really common one. So it's it really can impact learning as well for people.
Yeah, I love. Can you share your example of people who might be still going, I'm still not exactly sure. I love your example that you shared with me on a conversation.
Oh, yes. So
I think that's really great.
Yeah. So, and I'll explain it from this point of view. So a lot of people are saying now, oh, yeah, every second person's being diagnosed with ADHD, because obviously TikTok has become this thing that people share things on. And, we've now got people like psychologists, psychiatrists, pediatricians who are better at diagnosing all these things. So, and people are aware that, well, actually these struggles aren't normal. So, but often when you say or mention ADHD, people will just do this eye roll. And it's just like, that you're probably not going to get through to them. But when you say, has anyone ever left their keys on the bench, gone out to the car and realized they don't have their keys? And everyone goes, oh, yeah. And then it's like, has anyone ever had that one of those weeks where everything you've gone to do, you've forgotten something, or you've misplaced something, you've found your wallet in the fridge, and everyone laughs and goes, yep. And then I say, imagine having that 24/7, because that is what it's like with ADHD, and not just ADHD. It can be autism, trauma, any kind of stress. So any kind of neurodivergent condition will have executive function issues somewhere.
Yeah, I think that's such a great analogy and like sharing, so that people can visualize what it actually is like to live with ADHD.
Yeah. So even if you don't have ADHD, you will probably be impacted by poor executive functioning at some stage when there's a lot of stress on you, or things just aren't going so well. Yeah.
And perimenopause as well. And
perimenopause is another one. It's a big one. Yeah.
When your executive functioning is affected.
Yeah.
So what sort of strategies or tools can you share about what teachers maybe could do or parents can do within a school setting for students?
Yeah. So we've got lots of strategies that we share that we say that they're through a neurodivergent lens, but when you put those strategies into the whole classroom, they actually help everybody, because they're not hard for kids with neurotypical kids to do. So for example, if you've got kids that have just got that clutter and mess all over their desk, it could be just a little checklist on like a guide to remind them to put things in the tub, and put all the pencils back in the pencil case, or the little jar they have on the table. So it's the kind of visual reminders that kids often need. We expect that kids will just see us do something and then copy it, but there's a lot of little steps that they miss along the way. So if you're saying to kids, go and pack that away, and they're not packing it away, it's probably because they actually aren't sure exactly what you mean, or they'll put it
Yes.
in the wrong place, or they'll just sit it somewhere, and that to them is put away.
Yeah. It's not on the floor anymore or not on the table. So it's away, isn't it? Yeah.
If you're seeing kids that are procrastinating and not getting started on work, it's not because they're trying to misbehave. Often it's because they don't know where to start. So it's giving them some simple little cues on what do they need to do to start. So what's being asked of them? What's the subject about? What's the topic? What's the question asking? What would you need to do to answer that? So depending on what work they're doing, there's these little cues that we give to help. I give a sheet to teenagers, so it helps them break down whatever subject they're working on and get started. So
yeah, that's scaffolding, isn't it?
Yeah, that's scaffolding. Everyone thinks, oh, they're just lazy, but it's not. And that's that kind of language is really, really harmful for kids with ADHD.
Definitely.
That's what they hear, and they start to go, I'm just lazy, I'm stupid, I can't do it.
Yeah.
Or I can't concentrate and I can't focus. And they just don't have that sustained attention. So it's sort of getting them to realize it's okay if you can just pay attention for a short amount of time. If you get distracted, how are we going to get your attention back to what you're doing, and getting that confidence up that they can pay attention, and they were just going to build that skill.
Yeah. And what skills are going to help you to come back? I know for my own kids just saying, well, maybe, and I've heard them ask, I need a brain break. I just need some time out for a minute. And so that's great now that they're able to, advocate for themselves, to be able to put that strategy in place and feel comfortable that they're not, standing out. That actually they see that as real importance in their life and their day, to be able to get through the work that they're required in the classroom.
Yeah. And it's like these kids are, they're not designed to sit still for extended periods. They need to have those movement breaks. And a lot of kids have got fidget toys, and they're great because fidgeting helps them focus, but it's like finding that middle ground so they're not distracting the other kids with it. And is it a fidget or is it a toy? So the movement breaks are really, really helpful.
Yeah, and especially if they can do it as a class, because then it's it's actually going to probably benefit more than just that one child, a few children in the class. Whether they're neurotypical or neurodiverse, it's going to affect everyone. Yes, going back to the organisation, I was teaching grade sixes, I think it was maybe, 4 years ago. And on a Friday I had them, and there was a few that just struggled with their desk, and I would be like, okay, let's get our desk out, and we're going to do every Friday afternoon, we do a little cleaning. So I'd write the checklist of what you need to do, where the pencils need to go. And they'd be like, oh, it's so good when you do that. And I get so much praise on a Monday when their classroom teacher would then go, oh, look at your desks, they're all tidy. So built that in every Friday, and they actually look forward to it because they knew for Monday they'd be able to find their sheets, and I just work with a few of them and help put the sheets back in the folders and in their workbooks, stick in the books. So it was good little strategy that I used from professional organising in my classroom, which was great.
Be huge for them. I don't know, the common one we get with teenagers, particularly teenage girls, is they have a wardrobe. So they forget that their wardrobe's there for a reason, but they know where their clothes are, and they're quite happy for that to be there. But when you start asking questions, they don't want the clutter and the mess, because it makes it really hard for them to sit and relax in their room. And when you say what would be the first thing you would need to do, they just have, when you've got poor task initiation and like prioritizing or organizing, they just can't work out what they would need to do first. So it's things like going back to like, what would you need to move out of the way to be able to get to that area? So I need to move those clothes. Okay, if you're going to move those clothes or put them in the wash, what would you need to get out to have ready? I'd need a washing basket. Like it's going back like quite a few steps.
Yeah.
And I think with one of my clients, even just her mum would say, pack the dishwasher. And she'd be like, what do you mean pack the dishwasher? And she'd never done it as a kid. And then all of a sudden she's being told to do this job that she had no idea on what to do. It looks really like a very small step-by-step process for most people. When we broke it down, it was something like 9 or 11 steps that she had to go through. And she just, it was a lot for her.
And like you hear of people who are the person in the house who were like, "I'll restack the dishwasher if it's not, packed properly," which is probably me. But my kids have got used to it now where they go, but they have to learn where the cups go, what fits in which spot and how it's best going to utilize the space. But yes, I think that's a great example. And, the cleaning up, pack up your room or pack up in the classroom. If they don't know exactly what pack up looks like, it's really hard for them to put toys away and things away. Clean up your, the toy room. What does that actually mean?
What does that mean?
Just like I hear parents all the time saying, I came in and they'd stuffed everything in the wardrobe. And I'm like, well, they did clean up. There's none on the floor anymore. It's all under the bed. Well, they actually did do a great job, unless you've got a visual there showing them exactly what to do. So what about in the home? What are some tips or strategies that people can use in the home who have poor executive functioning? It could be children, but it could also be for adults as well.
Yep. So with kids and teenagers, it's really important for parents to help them to build those skills first. So we can't just say to the kids, here's the step-by-step, here's the list, this is what you have to do. Kind of got to model it and get them to do it with us, and then start removing one or two steps along the way. With kids and teenagers, one of the things that we'll often come up with is having like a landing pad and a launch pad. Can be the same thing, but it's basically when you get home, this is where your school bag goes, this is where your school shoes go. Because I hear so many parents say they can never find their school shoes when they got to go to school, and they only took them off the night before. But they've just kind of taken them off and thrown them in the porch. But having that one area for them to have set things, and then of a morning it's a launch pad, so it's ready to go. Having like set baskets in their room for certain things that they find they're losing. So I've got a couple of clients who have baskets for things like hoodies and like leggings or anything that's sort of casual wear that they kind of just toss. But when they're always searching for it, there's always arguments and fights. So they have set areas in their room in baskets in their wardrobes or drawers for just that kind of thing. And then often a bit of a schedule once a week to try and just keep things organized, because once it's completely unorganized, it's all too much and it's overwhelming.
Yes. And then there's going to be the resistance. Just like, I suppose, that classroom example, like just allocating that one time. And I don't know about you if you hear it, but I do find that there's high expectations on our young people to be able to do this quite quickly all the time, rather than actually they just might need some motivation. They might need you there within, like, body doubling, basically, with a parent.
Body doubling is really good.
Within the space, rather than just independently leaving them to do it by themselves.
Yeah, body doubling is so good because it gives you that motivation, and you're getting, like, you can talk to someone while you do it. What we don't realize too is that it's the language that we use to get kids to do it. So when kids are told, go and clean your room, everyone has that psychological reactance to, don't you tell me what to do? Kids with ADHD, higher again, or even, and adults as well. So instead of saying, go and clean your room, it could be, hey, how about we go and work out what you might need to do to get started this week? What do you need from me to help you this week? Or do you need me to help you? And not tell them directly, but it's in the moments of calmness that you need to have the conversations, not when they're stressed out or running out the door. It's like, when's it going to be a good time for us to discuss your room and have the conversation and teach them the skill when they're not already frustrated.
Yeah, that dysregulation, you're not going to get anything.
And when we talk about co-regulation, so obviously emotional control and self-regulation is part of the executive function. So we need to teach that skill to kids first, but there's a lot of steps to doing that. So saying stop crying or stop yelling is not going to work. But for parents, it's also them learning how to sort of regulate their emotion at that time as well. It's so easy for us, like, to yell, because we've all been there, like, we get frustrated, but we know now that, like, just being able to turn around and walk away, let things calm down and then come back, but not try and rationalize in that moment, because it's never going to work. So having that conversation when things are a bit calmer, and the kids often say to me they feel like they're always being accused.
Oh yeah, yes,
yeah. So and not good enough. Yeah. And I know my kids are the same. So
Yeah, no, I love that point around the language and how important it is around what we say and how we say it, because we will have that sort of PDA response in all of us that can be initiated because of us, what we're actually saying. So yeah, that's a great
Yep.
great suggestion. And I always
Yep.
find talking in the car is one of the best ways of communicating, because you're not facing each other and you can have that conversation, especially as they get a bit older. I mean, I
Yeah.
even find it when I'm working with clients, because you're sitting by the side of each other. You're not necessarily facing, and you're doing something with your hands. So it's such a great time to have a conversation and talk with each other. So yeah, definitely working with them, I think, is a great strategy.
Yeah, one of the things that they don't really teach you when you, like, so both my kids were diagnosed with ADHD after I was, and it totally made sense once I started learning more about for executive functioning. So when we look at like chronological age and then developmental age, there's a real lag in those executive function skills. So you might have a 16-year-old who just looks like they're immature in those kind of areas. So with those executive functions, and they're often around between 3 to 3.5 years behind. So that they probably do look immature in those areas, but they do catch up. But it doesn't just happen. They have to learn the skills. So that's why we say medication is great and it can help, but it doesn't teach skills. So that's that next step that we have to do as well. And we forget that when these kids have poor executive functioning, it affects everything that they do. Like, it affects every area of their life. So they might look like they've got it together in certain areas, and they might do really well at school. Some kids, like my kids, did extremely well at school, and they weren't troubled kids. They weren't naughty. They weren't disrespectful. But at home, it was just like, why can't you do the most basic of things? And I used to say, my son, who highly academic, and I'd be like, how can a kid so smart be so dumb? And we have apologized profusely, and I have said, I have to share that, even though it's embarrassing to say that that's what I said, because that's what happens. And he says, Mum, I totally get it. And even before this meeting, I said, guys, are you happy if I talk about your diagnosis? And they go, yeah, you can just always talk about it. I'm like, we always check before any talk. And they go, no, if you don't share the way we were, because we weren't that stereotype that everyone thinks, then people are not going to realize, well, hang on, that's my kids struggle with that all the time.
And it's like, we can only know better to do better, can't we?
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah.
That's why words matter. I always say it in my presentations, like our professional development workshops to teachers, your words matter. So I left school at 15 and I wanted to ask this teacher for a resume, and he said, don't waste your time or mine. You're not good enough. You won't get the job. And he said it 3 times, and it definitely had an impact on me, because I still talk about it today. Lucky for me, it probably drove me to prove him wrong. But it definitely messed with my mind for a long time, because I was told I wasn't good enough.
Yeah, isn't it?
So,
so important. So teachers can be such good role models either way. And it's important that they're that positive role model.
Well, I think I was really lucky. Our kids had great support at the schools they went to, and now going into the schools and just working with the kids, I just have a whole new respect again, because they're so busy, and there's just, I don't know, I sit back and I'm just like, I am glad I don't have your job, but I totally respect what you do.
Yes. Tanya, thank you so much for your time and all your knowledge, and sharing some great tips that people can implement in their homes and in school. How can people connect with you?
So I have a Facebook page, so Vanguard Coaching, and I have a website, so that's vanguardcoaching.com.au, and Instagram. Probably the best ways.
Perfect. And I'll share all those links in the show notes as well. Thank you so much for your time.
That's okay. Thank you.
I can't wait to share this episode with everybody.
Thanks, Narelle.